Welcome to Insights for IT Negotiations, a podcast by UpperEdge, a leading IT sourcing, negotiation, and project execution advisory firm. I'm John Belden, UpperEdge's Chief Research and Strategy Officer.
And I'm Kylie Chisholm, UpperEdge's Marketing Manager. Join us every other week as we share insights to help you maximize the value of your key IT relationships. In each episode, we'll delve into the topics that matter most to IT decision makers and sourcing professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Insights for IT Negotiations. I am Kylie Chisholm, UpperEdge's Content Marketing Manager. I am joined by my co-host, John. John, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent today. A little bit chilly outside, but I'm doing otherwise excellent.
Yes, yeah. Well, we're recording this Thanksgiving week here in the States, so it's starting to definitely get very chilly outside and head into winter. But we have before we head out on our Thanksgiving break, we are sitting down for a very exciting conversation. We are joined by two EY executives, Michael Casey and Gaurav Rastogi. We are super excited to have them on the show to chat a little bit about ERP implementations, the evolution of AI, all of that, all the fun stuff that we talk about on this podcast every other week. So I will pass it over to you, John, so that we can get our guests introduced and get the conversation flowing.
Yeah, I'm really excited about today's conversation because it's right in the wheelhouse of what I've spent a lot of my time and research on, which is the application of generative AI and AI techniques in the space of systems implementation. So I can't wait to dive into some of this stuff today. So why don't we just start by our guests from EY. Why don't you introduce yourselves and kind of give a little bit about your background and how your journey led you where you're at today, and then we'll dive into some of the specifics on EY and what you're doing out there.
Great. Well, good morning. Michael Casey over here. So my role, I'm CTO of the SAP and ERP practice at EY. I'm many decades into this industry, and my focus since the very beginning was around the deep end of the technology. And then as it relates to the delivery of large-scale systems implementations and business transformations. So my focus had always been around the bigger, more complex implementations when global became a thing, very large scale, complex architectures. And along the way, that led to a focus on industrialization. So how can we optimize the implementation lifecycle using tooling, better processes, alternatives to training, skills, those kind of things throughout my career. A number of years ago, I flipped over and came to EY, and it was solely for the purpose of looking at emerging technologies on behalf of EY as it relates to the ERP and enterprise technology market, focused with our main partners, Microsoft, SAP, and a few others, more recently NVIDIA, and looking at, once again, how can we alter, using the new emerging technologies, how we deliver services. What can they do? How will our customers benefit from them? And what should we do to prepare for that? At the same time, we do look at how we can benefit the business. So and we'll get into this more later. How can these new technologies and solutions generate business value? And we look at them both equivalently. So that's been my background. And that, John, as you said, that's what gets us here to today. Very exciting with generative AI being the most recent emerging technology. So happy to talk about our views on that and some of the inroads that we've made.
Hello, my name is Gaurav Rastogi. My background's sort of complementary to Mike's. It's in technology engineering with extensive experience in examining and evaluating emerging technologies, and then setting up labs to look at prototypes on how they can be useful both from a client perspective and a business value perspective. At EY, I work basically on strategic advice and hands-on guidance on the emerging technology that our clients can benefit from, with new technologies as they emerge and how they can be applied to their direct business value. My role's more a mixed role of research and development as well as direct client engagement. And I've been involved in EY slightly less than Mike, but about 7+ years. Deeply involved initially in cloud services, focusing on hyperscaler automation for SAP, FinOps, both for design and runtime, and now lately focusing on generative AI as well as the broader AI domain. So happy to be here, looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So why don't we get started just a little bit with more of the, I'll call it the specifics of EY's investments in generative AI. There's been quite a few announcements out there that EY has made on where they're investing in generative AI. And from my perspective, they've been one of the leaders in terms of kind of going to market and saying, we have tools that will benefit clients. So can you speak just a little bit about, kind of what's out there publicly and where EY has been making its investments in generative AI?
Absolutely, and this is one where a little bit of intention and a little bit of luck comes to fruition. The intention, going back to when EY recruited present company to come in and to bring in a certain amount of experience in things and cultivate it. We operate as an office of the CTO. We do primary research, but we also have an innovation lab where we bring the new technologies in, tear them down, and able to provide firsthand perspective. So there is the writing the white paper research, but also the bring it into the garage and turn it up to 9,000 RPMs to see how these things work. And we've proven, some 10x cases in the cloud automation, as Gaurav mentioned in the past, and how to truly save value out of your cloud and with FinOps for as two examples. But if I look at it from a firm, so we're one microcosm example, but from a firm perspective, going back years, and there's been, as all of our peers in the market mentioned, large numbers of investments. A lot of times that is associated with training, sending everybody training and counting that hour as an investment. That's not what we're counting when we're publishing. We're going back to foundational investments that led up to our ability to accelerate our activities with generative AI. So, for example, we have an organizational entity called Client Technology, whose charter is to provide the substrate foundation elements for our service lines and our frontline folks to build solutions and to take solutions to our customers, to our clients. That's distinct from our back office IT. It's distinct from our other entities. And they provide things like the latest tools and technologies that have been vetted for things like security and privacy and scalability. So when the lines folks first touch and use these things, they've already passed the first hurdle of safety, privacy, confidential, regulatory, for example, if that's a concern. And once again, we're back to areas where we're in regulatory concerns or privacy concerns. So the client technology entity is kind of answer number one. What comes on the heels of that is Fabric. So Microsoft has Fabric. We had Fabric kind of before that, and it's the same purpose. It's a ubiquitous layer of data, of tooling, of capability that provides incremental advantage to the users, right? In terms of harmonization, access, ubiquity, metadata, those kind of things.
When you say Fabric, you're referring to kind of the I'll call it, let's play the game, the tapestry of the technology that's being applied.
Yes. So if you're familiar with Microsoft's Fabric, it's been around about a year or so now. So we had that like 3 years ago. We have an EY Fabric, and yes, now they're consolidating because we're a very big Microsoft shop on the back end, open source Microsoft, and then our other partners. But Fabric is also it's a mentality, right? It's a development mode. It's to be able to drive innovation. You have to have these foundational elements. And this is core to our point of view that we bring to clients when they ask us how to get started. So yes, we had our Fabric capability. Fabric.ey.com. If Gaurav and I type those URLs in, we go into a developer workspace. We go into a designer workspace. We go into libraries of tools and channels to get into skills and communities and those things. That's another part about Fabric is as a mentality, it's around collaboration. So having domain specific, but then also global collaboration channels such that we can bring our best experts together on a common basis. And I think generative AI is now a topic that has driven the most collaboration and the most volume of interconnectivity across the firm and across the globe. So that's really client technology, Fabric, and the foundational physical tools and elements. And now it's into the investments around actual solutions. So, this is where I'll mention we organize things a couple ways internally, and we sometimes share this with clients. We call them offense and defense. And offense is where we're helping to build solutions that are going to go help solve our clients' problems. So they're business solutions, that go in the hands of the end users of their business, and defense. Defense is where we're building out different service offerings, altering how we do business, expanding our service offerings using tools and technologies, and now generative AI. So there's sort of 3 layers there that differentiate, and those do add up to some significant investments in terms of time, people, software licensing, capability development, and an ongoing innovation program where we have investments to fund to build new solutions, to research solutions. And I will say we do, in terms of innovation, we do fail fast. So that's a key thing and insight we share with clients, that to really truly innovate, you should be budgeting for failure. Don't expect always to have success because of the nature of these new tools and technologies. That's a mentality you have to proceed with as well. And so we certainly have that in-house.
And in general, when you roll these technologies out across the EY enterprise, is it typically done holistically, or are you diving down and saying, no, we're only going to provide these tools to this particular market space? I mean, what's the enterprise strategy on that?
It's a mix. So the mix is based on a few things. It's always a studied exercise. And so cost isn't the first filter, I will say. I think that's often a perception in the market. But we do focus on cost. But it's really more around, it could be regulatory. So it could be, does this tool, technology, or data exercise work in this region, or does it pass local regulatory muster? It could be fit for purpose and need. So which business units need certain things? There are a number of filters, but the goal is, for example, we were one of the first to have an OpenAI LLM available. We have a solution called EY.AI, and so it's our version of Copilot.
Right.
Ubiquitous access. I'm sure we've advertised that. It's under our EY.AI platform and banner. And I'll tell the story, right? So that was in our hands 3 months after OpenAI became available to the public market. And then it went away for 4 months, 3-4 months, which much to everyone's surprise. And the reason for that was data. This was right when the Samsung leak happened, data privacy and concern. So it went away, and it came back a few months later, and then it was secure, safe, under control. So that's a great example of measuring the pace of innovation and speed against probably the principle that EY holds most high is, and what our customers expect from us as the audit and the tax provider in the market, which means risk, which means data privacy, which means we're worthy of meeting all of the board level objectives for any new initiative, is that the right due diligence has been done. So we have knowledge assets around what we call the confidence index. Confidence index is how can you trust this generative AI space solution? What confidence should you assign to it? So how do you manage that uncertainty? Various assets we've built up along the way. But that would be an example where when EY.AI went live, it went live around the world, across the entire firm. And then, so that's probably the answer there.
So let's start with the good stuff, because we're going to get into where's the bad things and generative AI, and where's the risk. Where have you had as a firm really good solid experience that you can point to and say, you know what, we applied it here and we are seeing productivity gains, right, that we are absolutely able to pass through to our clients?
Mm-hmm. So I would say I'll probably give maybe 2-3 examples, and Gaurav, color in here or add to it. So the EY.AI is a great example where we have, and it's the population dynamics are really interesting. So as I mentioned, having ubiquitous access means a couple things. Instantly, you can ascribe a certain amount of productivity to that, even through the ramp up phase of people getting used to it. And we monitor and measure adoption and usage and the types of things that people use it for. And that has gone into the further investments of refinement of developing, for example, prompt libraries and skill domains where you basically unleash the power of the expert or the maven, if you will. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell's term, where populations form up around folks who are adamant about taking this thing to the nth degree in their area and then sharing it out. So that's one example where we are seeing we are seeing, direct impact of solutions being developed just by folks in their daily life. I used to do it this way. Tomorrow I'm doing it that way, using the new tools that the firm has given me, and now I'm sharing it out. And now we see the growth of those. I won't even call them organic. Organic's everything we build inside, but I would call it almost more ad hoc, if you will. So there's a very vibrant and fertile ad hoc community of solutions that are being developed.
Yeah,
And then,
it's kind of like 30 years ago or 35 years ago when they used to refer to end user computing, right? Oh, you gave me a PC, right? I'm developing my own solution and now I'm going to share it out with everybody else, right?
exactly. Like, it's like an app store, for example, or like the precursor to Git, the precursor to those places where digital assets started to be shared, digital content. Then as I mentioned, we have an intentional program around enhancing our delivery solutions. So looking across the software lifecycle globally, the software lifecycle in ERP or COTS packages versus the software lifecycle in custom development. If you look at, we could spend the whole hour talking about what our tax business is doing and what our audit business is doing, where they are really looking at reframing how they deliver services entirely using these tools. So significant investments there that are already in the market, already being used and demonstrating impact. The the thing, so we're definitely up the understand how they work into the adoption, and then it's down into the secondary and tertiary type benefits and behaviors that are necessary. So ubiquitous adoption, for example, how do you go from where the population of mavens adopt these and then spread out across? And there's, that story isn't fully written, but the answers look like a combination of industrialization of tool sets, so where they are made fit for purpose and put in the hands of the practitioners, but then also through some of the market solutions. So we did a lot of internal organic development, but there are more and more market solutions. So Microsoft Copilot as one example that is now more ubiquitously available, and its inner workings are becoming more to the forefront. And we've got folks that are, again, kicking the tires on that. And then most recently, and we can talk probably more about this a little bit later, SAP's Joule. So now SAP's started to reveal the Joule suite and its various functions and how that's going to work. And so that's coming back together with the research that we've already done about how could we or would we reinvent our service offerings and how we deliver.
Well, can we dive down into some specific use cases, like in terms of, let's call it an ERP implementation? I mean, I'll go through some of the stuff that I've heard, right, that we've heard other vendors talk about, in terms of, we've seen productivity in functional designs, we've seen productivity in code development, in I'll call it data cleansing, test development. Can you guys speak to where we've actually seen improvements in that space, let's say in a big ERP implementation?
So what's already concurrent, or call it even in the review mirror, are the micro advancements. So where across the life cycle, traditionally, even as we've come through an era of advanced tooling, a lot of the crunch work gets done using hands and Office, Excel, a little Python here, text file manipulation, a lot of text space, a lot of data analysis. So the EYQ suite allows each individual to accelerate that activity, and that's what I mean by when I say the Maven population moving around. So data analysis, data conversions, profiling, upfront analysis, and we did already have tools that do a lot of that stuff. So it's enhancing that. It's taken the chunk of the desktop work and hyper accelerating that. So put that on the shelf. That's in flight. That's happening. And but next, when we get to the more industrialization focus, we've looked at each aspect of the SDLC, including so because the software part, but when we talk about transformation, which is largely EY's focus in the market, that starts before the software. It starts with the business, assessing the business profile, its capabilities, its maturities, its pain points, and that goes in the route of the requirements flow, but also goes the route of the change management flow. And so some of our initial tool, we basically have been changing the offerings and changing how we work across the life cycle. So from a change management perspective, we're using NVIDIA-powered avatars to do program communication from the very kickoff of a program. While not the largest count of hours, but they are some of the most important hours in a program, are that of the senior sponsors. And we hold senior sponsorship as one of the fundamental key success factors of a transformation. So we've enabled projects using Omniverse and avatars on a EY platform. It's called our Million U Experience platform, our change management platform, to be able to create very rapidly digital content, the program charter, the weekly sponsorship message, announcements, that type of stuff from the beginning using avatars. And the advantage of that is severalfold. The amount of time to create the content's much less than recording those individuals who are hard to get scheduled, and it certainly takes a draw off their time. But then it's ubiquitously available. So when you have a global program, which oftentimes with ERP, they're global, you're in multiple regions, different continents, you've got a time zone issue. So are you rolling out the charter presentation 3 times in 3 time zones? You have languages. Yes, we sort of force oftentimes our programs to everyone operate in English because that's just the easiest, but it's much more comfortable and oftentimes effective for individuals to listen to the presentations in their own language. By using our digital avatar platform, everyone can consume the content whenever they want across the board. If they miss the session that's published, they can do it later, and they can have it in their own language. So that is an impact that drives, call it, qualitative results that are real and here and now. So that's one great, first example. And then synthesis of the content, as you mentioned, design documents. So this is where we can go deeper. Bringing requirements into the design construct. We've developed a digital AI-powered design platform. Gaurav's the visionary and the architect of it, whereby we use generative AI. We use our EY best practice methodology, leading practice methodology, put together, and we have taken, this is kind of key to EY's very adamant point of view on generative AI, which is humans in the middle. That's one concept that we would expect to talk to quite a bit, which is that and this gets back to trust, as we will talk later, I'm sure, about trust and the risks there. Humans in the middle, which is our senior most experts per domain, per service line across the globe, have been brought in to create what we're calling a digital twin. It's effectively a digital twin agent.
Yeah, I was going to say an agent, right? I mean, that's kind of the notion of that.
Yeah. Now, the agent, because these are probably the conversations you're having with some customers, certainly we see, that does not mean that digital agent goes off and does the project by themselves and lets us know when it's done. Hardly, right? What that agent does, it allows all of our practitioners in a given area and phase to experience the support, the acceleration, and the guidance as if they had our most senior practitioner sitting with them 24/7, available all the time with them as they operate. So it's very much like what we will see with copilots coming about, except copilots still are reactive. Copilots will help you when you ask them a question. Our agent provides the guidance to our practitioners. So the practitioner states the outcome. I'm working on this type of a design. I'm working on this type of a deliverable. And our agent, it's called coach. It's it's not trademarked, so don't take it that way yet. But the internal operating phrase is coach. And earlier we talked about football. It operates as a coach, so the player can focus on their game, which is their client and their project and their information that is specific to that requirement or that pain point and that leading practice. But following the structure of our standard methodology, making sure that there is coverage and depth of content across all of the dimensions of what makes a good design, really enabling the idea of shift left, right? Getting it right up front, which is where real cost advantage can come down the road, down into the later phases and into go live. They're able to feel confident that they can perform at that level because they have coach guiding them through and providing specifics, providing insights, but also most importantly, providing the comprehensiveness of a rich design. So if I come to it with, my Western New York slang and shorthand, and Gaurav has his idioms, and you have your acronyms, our designs can look and sound and feel like that, which whether it's our peers, our supervisors, or our clients, when they receive those deliverables, they have to go through an acclimation, a comprehension process that is, causes friction, it can cause rework, or it can just cause, loss of affinity for requirements through the process. What we're finding is with a coach guided deliverable set, we are, quote, getting it right the first time. It meets all the standards. It is rich and written in a common, rich narrative so that when we go to do reviews, peer reviews, quality reviews, and then client reviews, deliverable acceptance, we have a much higher first pass acceptance rate because it's very rich deliverable.
Did you know that UpperEdge offers subscription advisory services? This on-demand solution provides essential benchmarks and market insights specific to your business needs precisely when you need it, empowering you and your team to make informed decisions for your IT initiatives. Position your team for success. Reach out today via the link in the show notes to learn more.
So let me go into a space that I'm sure all of our clients are going to be absolutely interested in, which is how do you create what I'm going to refer to as the situational awareness for that coach that says, I understand the program that I'm actually working on. That you're not just kind of regurgitating a recipe for me on how to do things, right? But I'm doing that coaching in the context of my program and protecting your client at the same time, that the knowledge that you're pushing into that tool isn't going to be exposed or necessarily shared with the competition.
So I can take part of that, Mike. So our view is the AI is there to aid the users, right? It is not regurgitating content that we've already created. It taps on those. Similar to that, when we look at generating these functional designs, the contextual awareness is key. So do we understand the customer's industry, the customer's own mission and vision, the project's charter, and all of that can feed into how coach approaches the design process, right? So it is not only that we are looking at a level 3 business process design as an example. We are looking at the level 3 business process design in the context of the industry, the customer, and the project's charter, right? The other part of it is the disbursement of clients' knowledge across to other clients. That's something that we don't do because each client is a separate client. Our learnings are more abstract, they're industry specific, but client specific IP is always protected. The intent is to bring the methodology to life, right? We codify the SMR expertise in the SDLC flow such that the methodology is there, guiding the users or end users every step of the way actively, as opposed to a passive reference to a methodology which lives in library.
Mhm. But in general, right? You are protecting that client's uh, that client's IP so that it's not becoming part of the knowledge base that the tool sets are gonna that the tool sets are going to access in the future. Because clearly we've all heard the horror stories of what's being fed into the generative AI, and it's just kind of like the Borg, right? It's just taking in all of this knowledge, and then at certain points there's a genuine concern that's going to regurgitate something that I don't want out in the marketplace.
Absolutely. So we are very deliberate about what we are retrieving to disperse out during the process from our application perspective, as well as very deliberate about protecting what would be client specific information that represents their competitive edge.
All right, so so we've talked about a number of the good things on generative AI and the applications of the good things on generative AI. Let's get a little bit into the dark side. Okay, I mean, where have you seen I'll call it the big pitfalls, if you will, and mistakes being made on the application of generative AI in the context of this whole subject we're talking about?
Mhm. I'll throw a few out there and then Gaurav. So we all know about the leakages, right, of the first exercises where folks went out and banged in questions and submitted code for reviews into the open tools, and then all of a sudden their IP is lost or out there published. So we're pretty much past that, and certainly the way we manage it internally, we've got safeguards that can't happen even erroneously. But where we see, frankly, the broad population in terms of its understanding that is a risk and an issue at times is over ascribing capability. So assuming the AI can do everything. We get that question 3 times a day. Can the AI just basically fill in the blank of a very long, complex problem, undefined, undocumented problem statement? It ends with, and then just give me the answer and the results, right? So from a business user perspective, from a business consumer perspective, this over assumption that AI can already knows everything and can do everything for me. So there's a learning curve there that we're working through with our customers, with our colleagues, around, it knows what it knows what it knows, and you need to know what it knows, and then you can proceed productively, right? So it's turning that dark gray area into more of an enlightenment piece. Those are a couple. Gaurav, you probably got a couple more that might be on my list.
I would say AI in general, in the broader domain, has always been a different category than regular compute. Generative AI is a subset there, but AI, the artificial intelligence part, has always been probabilistic rather than deterministic, right? In our lifetimes, we have gone from computers are always right to it may be right because it's coming up with the best possible solution. So what we find is, in our experience, and as we use these tools, even with the advancement of models, there is a conflation between what is considered general intelligence and what we are using right now. We're moving towards reasoning models, but still language models, right? So the injection of, as we mentioned before, human in the middle pattern is key, just to make sure that the LLM, the language being generated, stays down the path that you want. And then you have to be specific as well. You just can't say, make this sound better. You have to explain how, because otherwise it goes in various directions. And then you assume the technology is not working. It's just that the guidance is insufficient, right? So, and then the next part is, Mike talked about the understanding that LLM doesn't know everything, but you can augment its knowledge, the whole retrieval augmented generation domain. But in there also, what is important is 3 things in our experience: the elimination of bias, which requires diversity of information, the quality of information that is being fed to the LLM such that it can generate qualitative answers, the old garbage in, garbage out, and quantity just so that it has enough material in all situations to be able to give a response. And then watch for edge cases, where I think over the years, reliance on technology to improve business outcomes, we have become complacent in the fact that if a system says something, it must be true. Now you're in a position where you have to evaluate, is it really true? And that requires judgment, right? At the end of the day, I think what's important is to remember that language models, our current generation, are still probability-based math models, right? They are just looking at the next best response based on the current state. They're not reasoning yet, but when they are reasoning, when they start to reason, when they start to derive intelligence, they move from artificial to almost general intelligence, right? At that point, I think we won't be talking about this. The agents would be talking about this.
Well, that kind of leads us down into the. I'll call it my next question, right? Well, let's look into the future and let's call it AGI. I mean, Sam Altman's talked about, hey, maybe we're going to have AGI in 2025. Now, is that going to be real? Yeah. Is it going to be real, and is it going to be affordable? I guess those two things go in hand in hand. I mean, what's EY's view of what's out there in the future, and how is it going to change things?
So I'll share my personal perspective. So Sam Altman also said AGI will come and go and you'll not notice, right? So that's one part of it. But more importantly, it's difficult to predict changes in technology. Technology has always been a series of S curves. Some of them, as we look at it, fail fast but fail forward. Models will get better, will get more capable. the new model that is using chain of thought is getting better in reasoning, right? But because it requires more computation, it's currently slower and costs about 3 to 4x more. So that will always be there. Cost, I think, would probably always be a secondary factor. It's a benefit you get out of the spend, like everything else, right? Your customers look at ROI in general. But as we move forward, new approaches will develop. May move from what the current generation of language models is towards more reasoning AI. What is important for us and customers in general is to make sure we design architectures that are loosely coupled so that as new technologies come in place, you can replace components and work towards more composable architecture solutions such that you adopt new technologies at a faster pace, right? Doesn't mean that you will have a generic architecture where everything will work instantly. There will always be refactoring, but the intent is to try to abstract it to a degree that allows you to move forward quickly. In terms of other capabilities of what's called emergent behavior, uh, really tough to say. There's enough research going on, and with this increase in the number of practitioners, the amount of technology that is being evaluated, discarded, and propagated is immense. In my opinion, difficult to say, but I think we will see significant changes. What we see as LLMs today will become really crude ways in the future.
Yeah, well, just one contextual sort of byline. Gaurav and I work in a specific area of enterprise technology. EY has folks who are, primary researchers on the latest models, on these frontier models, and their, parameter counts, token counts. So I don't want to, I want to footnote that, and if the listening audience is interested in that, Dan Diazio is our global AI lead. He's a person who has a team who researches those kind of things for those very reasons, to understand exactly where we are on the progression. In terms of Gaurav mentioned the S curves, right? That's what we're focused on, because yes, the first foray into LLMs is perhaps starting to plateau a bit, but the level of tooling and accessibility, and then also just the engineering capability catching up to taking advantage of these things is as fervent and frothy as ever. So these overlapping S curves are going to provide, I would say, an opportunity plane that is still growing, even exponentially. Taking advantage of that opportunity is where more research, more insight is needed. Our belief is a few things, right? Being in the enterprise technology in the ERP space, we've always looked at things as people, process, technology, and data. And with this paradigm of generative AI, we're looking at flipping that from the people drive complicated, disparate technologies with messy, disconnected data through processes that a lot of times have become, call it tribal or institutionalized, as opposed to standardized, documented, and managed. The future could be where the technology drives a very refined and optimized process powered by good, clean data that it has a hand in generating and cleansing, but it's managed and orchestrated by experts. So once again, humans in the middle, but with a different role. That's if that's our central internal construct or hypothesis and how we get there. What's helpful thinking of it that way is that same paradigm is what's useful to our client's end user and customer. It's useful to our client's internal operation. It's useful to us as we serve our clients and how we develop things. So as we've talked about, can we trust LLMs? Well, who is trusting the LLM? There's a degree of expertise and of sensitivity that's necessary to be able to. I remember, Gaurav, very early days, we were testing one of the LLMs, and we asked it a question, and it gave us an affirmative answer because it likes to do that. But I noticed a fact that it asserted was current was out of date because this model had been trained 3 years prior. But it's only because I happen to know this very obscure fact about that situation. So if we think about that in the context of all of these other things, there's gradients in knowledge across every spectrum, certainly this industry, but in every department, in every organization. And whether it's Microsoft's research about the effects on junior developers and senior developers, which we very much subscribe to that model and use it to leverage how we position our tools, or whether it's looking at business adoption and navigating these things. The opportunity there is to take the scarce expertise and scale it, which could and should be good for everyone. The risk is further concentration that also has economic concentration, and that we have a knowledge gap that widens of haves and have-nots. We have a capital gap of haves and have-nots. That's the concern, that we have to manage these things in a way that, on the positive side, if we're working together the right way and putting the right expertise in the right moment, we can really accelerate how we do things for good benefits, not just doing. Another buzz phrase we have that is in some of our content is around, this adds up to better, faster, cheaper. Those are the three things that you can measure across what we're trying to do here. Well, we're all about better. We're trying to come up with leading practices, high performance, business results, but this market likes cheaper, right? The ERP market likes cheaper first. And so we've looked at it a construct of we have to deliver cheaper, or feels like cheaper, meaning on par with current budgets, to be able to deliver better, and faster in there. That's another aspect that we.
I think you've hit on, at least from my perspective, let's call it the value proposition of a systems integrator. Right now sitting in the space of a potential client now that has access to all of these tools, right? I mean, you can get on to, as you said, Chat GPT and start asking questions, and get pretty decent answers in many situations about how I should approach a problem without necessarily going to a systems integrator, because you can get a pretty decent answer. The value proposition, I think, as you put it, is the currency of knowledge, right? How current is that knowledge that you're actually getting out of Chat GPT? And is it delivering you the lowest cost solution? Yeah, it may be delivering a lower cost solution, but is that ultimately going to be the competitive piece that you're going to need within the marketplace, right? Because the it is impossible now, sitting in a seat in corporate America, to be the expert on anything anymore. It's just impossible because of the pace of change that's happening out there, right? And so I think companies need to depend on systems integrators like EY to have that currency of knowledge and be invested in maintaining that currency of knowledge in order to be able to be confident, right, that the solutions that they're bringing to the marketplace are the best in the world.
Agreed. Facilitator, purveyor, leader of those things. Those are all the roles we want to have. Scale those things as well. We do look and focus on that. You made me think of another. Here's another use case, an example, an integration that we've studied the case in our lab and put numbers around it. So, building an interface, application interface in an SAP project or any ERP project. It's one of the highest cost items. Provides ostensibly a lot of value because we're having seamless application experience of a business process, but nonetheless, right? So you can have ostensibly, I think, Gaurav, what we came up with, like 9 roles involved in building an interface. So let's say it's Salesforce to SAP order management. Between functional knowledge of the domain, understanding the Salesforce specifics and the SAP specifics to drive the technical specifications, the Salesforce programming, the SAP programming, and then you've got middleware programming. We came up with like 9 roles, and an interface like that typically takes 12 weeks, 14 weeks to develop, to organize those 9 people together, to bring their information through the process, to get through testing, this works, ship it. Forget the hours, right? Hundreds of hours. If we had a functional expert who understood the sales order process really well, functionally, and they are working with a design agent who knows the specifics of Salesforce and the language and the middleware, I mean, MuleSoft or web methods, whatever it might be, and SAP, and those specs change, like you said, on a very dynamic basis. So not just I know the field mapping to the API set, but I know it for this version that just popped last week, or right. I can take, and I have a technical engineer who can put the piece parts together and make sure that the code's right and it compiles and ships, to use old terms. I can take a thing that took 9+ people in 14 weeks. I could do that with 2 people. I could do it in about 2 weeks. Do I save cost? Sure, but who cares about the cost at that point? I care about the fact that if I can build a complex interface with 2 people who, by the way, their expertise isn't in this proprietary language of this version, they have a lot of other things they bring to the table around business continuity, around exception handling, around routing. I can really change how I do things, right? So that's why we're investing in these design agents and we did this in the lab. We sat people in chairs and we said, okay, now you're talking, go get all the Salesforce specifics, get the SAP specifics. And, most of it's there, a lot of it's there, not entirely. So now you can build more interfaces. So you could change the paradigm of best of suite to being best of breed more universally. Because what the reason why we stay the way we were is the friction and the viscosity and the cost of rewiring those systems. But if the AI can manage the technical specifications and I just bring design expertise and engineering expertise to the table, I can completely change that paradigm. That's, and then that's one version before the business user just tells their application, hey, I want this data to go to that application, and the systems just talk to each other and work it out themselves. That comes out.
We've covered a lot of ground today, and we really, really appreciate you folks at EY kind of educating us and our clients on where you see generative AI going. From the standpoint of, kind of last words and one piece of advice to the clients, if you were to say, hey, if you got to remember one thing, this is what it is, how would you kind of frame that up for us?
Uh, from an artificial intelligence perspective, I think the evaluation of your models and your appetite for the probabilistic nature of the outcomes, I think is going to be key. Having a test framework that continues to evaluate the behaviors of new models as they come in, new capabilities against your business needs and requirements is going to be paramount.
Focus your expertise. So one of the best accelerants to a transformation program is when we ask our customers' business to put their best experts into the requirements and the design sessions. That's where we get the best capture of both how they operate, but how they operate at a high level of performance and how they can operate in a differentiated way in the future. That is also true, and possibly more true, in the generative AI dynamic, where we can bring into the room the focused expert, getting their time and their insights and their creativity into that design environment. That's where we open up new doors and new solutions and new ideas. It's also where we avoid overestimating the AI, accepting hallucinations and those kind of things. So that's fundamental to our internal development approach, and that's what I would say to our customers.
All right, Kylie, can you wrap us up?
Yes, thank you guys so much for that super insightful conversation. I know we talked about throughout several points where we want to follow up with you guys on some things. So if any of our listeners want to follow up and chat with you guys about what we discussed in the episode, what is the best way to contact you?
I can be found on LinkedIn under Michael Casey. I can provide the link in the chat if there is one, or I suppose a QR code. But that's the best place to get my contact information and reach out.
Same for me, Gaurav Rastogi on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And I will link those in the show notes of today's episode so that people can easily find you guys. But thank you so much. Thank you, John, for those great questions. And we will see all of our listeners in our next episode of Insights for IT Negotiations. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Insights for IT Negotiations. This episode was hosted by John Belden and Kylie Chisholm and produced by Mike Brown. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss a new episode. For more information on IT sourcing and risk management strategies, visit UpperEdge.com and subscribe to our monthly UpperEdge newsletter. Thank you for listening.